Hi everyone. In this lesson, we are going to talk about writing skills. In the new SPM format, all candidates are required to write an email in the first part of their writing test. And this part carries 20 marks. Therefore, it's important for you to do well in this section so that you can get a good result in the examination. Okay, next, let's look at the assessment criteria. It's important for us to know what is expected of us before we learn how to write an email. So there are 4 parts to the criteria. The first one, content, that carries 5 marks. So when we are writing the email, we have to make sure that all content is relevant to the task, and we must make sure that the readers or our readers know what to do after reading our email. Next, it's about communicative achievement. So this part is about appropriate tones, whether we need to use a friendly tone, a serious tone, or jokey tone. So we have to determine the tone before we start writing the email. And also about the register. We have to use the appropriate register. In other words, we have to determine whether we have to use formal language or informal language. But normally, when we are writing an email, we will normally choose the informal language because an email is normally a correspondence between 2 friends. So the informal language is more preferred. Okay, it's preferred in the email. Next, organization. So this part is about connectors and cohesive devices. For example, besides, in addition, furthermore. Okay, the last one is about the language, and that carries 5 marks too. So about the language, we have to make sure that we have sufficient vocabulary, and we have to make sure that the vocabulary is related to the topic, and the words that we use are able to convey the main theme of the essay. For example, if our email is about how to protect ourselves from COVID-19, so we need to make sure that the words that we choose in our email are able to convey the theme. And the last one, accurate grammar. So we have to make sure that our readers can understand our email easily at the first reading. We don't want our readers to stop at some point while reading our email and reread certain sentences because they don't understand our language or our sentences. A good email is an email which is easy to read. Remember that. Okay, let's look at the example here. Question 1. You receive an email from your friend, Peter. Hi, the cases of COVID-19 in Malaysia are on the rise recently. I'm so worried about the alarming situation. What should I do to protect myself? Please write back soon. Bye. Now write an email to your friend in about 80 words. Write your answer below. Look at the question here. Your email should be about 80 words, but don't forget that this is just a guideline. So you can go more than that, okay? And you won't be punished for writing longer than 80 words. But please do not write shorter than 80 words. If your email is too short, maybe you won't have enough points and you won't have enough content to make your readers understand your ideas fully. So always write longer than 80 words. Okay, let's start planning our email. Normally, when we plan our email or writing, we ask ourselves questions. The key here is that we must ask the right questions. So the questioning technique is very important, and you have to always train yourself to ask and to focus on the correct questions. First, let's look at the content. After reading the question, you need to ask yourself, what does Peter want from you? And after that, you have to answer your own question, advice on how to protect ourselves during the pandemic of COVID-19. The second question that you should ask yourself, how do we protect ourselves during the pandemic of COVID-19? Okay, the first one, wear a mask. Next, wash our hands with soap and sanitizer. And the last one, avoid crowded places. So, after you answer your own questions, make sure that you jot down your answers quickly on a piece of paper. Next, we have to think about communicative achievement. So what are the questions that we should ask ourselves in this section? The first one, what is the tone that we need? Okay, in the case of COVID-19, we need to choose a serious tone because we want to tell Peter about what to do to protect himself. Next, we also need to choose a friendly and polite tone because we need to be polite with our friends. So in this case, we have to choose a mix. The tone that we need is a mix of serious and friendly and polite. Next, what about the register? What is the register that we need? We need to choose the informal language because we are talking to our friends. Next, it is about organization. In these sections, the first question that we need to ask ourselves is, how many paragraphs do you need? Normally, when we are writing an email, we only need one paragraph. And the second question, what do you need to have in an email? So this is a very common question among students because most of the students do not know what to include in an email. So in an email, normally we need to start the email with a greeting so that we can sound friendly. Next, we have to let our friend know the purpose of us writing this email. So in this case, we want to give Peter some advice on how to protect ourselves during the pandemic of COVID-19. After that, we have to include content. Okay, so in this case, the content is about how to protect ourselves during the pandemic of COVID-19. And we have just mentioned that just now. It's about wearing a mask and then wash our hands with soap and sanitizer and also avoid crowded places. And lastly, we have to include a sign off to end the email properly. And the last question in this section is about what are the connectors and cohesive devices that we need. Okay, so here are some common connectors and cohesive devices that we normally use. First, besides, in addition, therefore, so that, and if. Okay, the last section is about language. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what is the vocabulary that we need? Okay, so about the question of the theme of COVID-19, words that come across our mind after reading the questions are contagious, precautions, mask, virus, sanitizer, crowded places, social distancing. So we have to quickly jot down the words that come across our mind on a piece of paper. And you might not be using them later, but it's always good for you to write them down on a piece of paper because they will come in handy when you need them. And the next one is, what types of sentences do you need? Normally, we need to have both simple sentences and complex sentences in a well-crafted piece of writing. Okay, let's read the sample email together. Hi, how are you? COVID-19 is an extremely contagious pandemic. I can share your worries too. I would like to give you some advice on some necessary precautions. First, we must always wear a mask whenever we go out. The mask can shield us from the floating virus in the air. Besides, we must always wash our hands with soap and sanitizer so that we can avoid contact with virus in the surroundings. In addition, we should avoid crowded places. If we go to crowded places, it is difficult for us to practice social distancing. Therefore, we will be exposed to the deadly virus easily. I hope my advice is helpful. See you later. Bye. Okay, now, after reading this email, we are going to discuss different aspects of this email one by one. First, we are going to talk about different elements of this email. Okay, remember, when we are writing an email, we have to start by writing a greeting. Okay, a greeting. We must have a greeting, and then we must have a writing purpose. Okay, we have to let people know what is our purpose of writing this email. After that, we must have the content. Okay, of course you will know the content here, right? It's about wearing a mask, wash our hands, and avoid crowded places. After that, we have to include a proper sign off. Okay, so these are the things that we must include in our email. Okay, after that, we want to talk about the tones. Okay, we want to talk about the tones, and we can identify 3 different tones in this email. The first one, it's the friendly tone. How do we achieve the effect of a friendly tone? First of all, we can achieve the effect by writing a greeting. Okay, when we say how are you, okay, we can make people feel that we are friendly. Besides, we can also write these 2 sentences. Okay, let's read together. COVID-19 is an extremely contagious pandemic. I can share your worries too. Okay, let's think about why we should write these 2 sentences. When we are writing these 2 sentences, we agree with Peter that COVID-19 is very dangerous. Therefore, his request for our advice on how to protect ourselves is relevant and important. And I'm sure Peter will feel happy when he knows that we actually agree with him. So we can be friendly by just agreeing with our friend. Okay, next, let's talk about the serious tone. So in this email, we achieve the effect of a serious tone through the use of certain words. For example, we use the words necessary. Okay, necessary, because when Peter sees the word necessary, he knows that this is something very important that he must follow. Okay, and also we use the word must here, and also should. Okay, so the words must, okay, the modals, okay, the modal verbs must and should show that it's very important for Peter to follow our ideas. Okay, and also the words that carry extreme negative meanings, such as virus and deadly, okay, also can achieve the effect of our serious tone, because it will alert Peter to the danger of COVID-19. Lastly, it's about the polite tone. And how do we achieve the effect of a polite tone? First, we can achieve the effect of a polite tone by greeting our friend. Okay, by greeting our friend, because I'm sure everyone would agree with me that if I say when we greet our friends or we greet someone, it shows that we are polite. And besides, we can sign off. Okay, we write sign off. Okay, so it's always polite to say goodbye to someone before we leave a place, isn't it? So see you later, bye. Also, okay, these words also can achieve the effect of a polite tone. Okay, now we have already discussed how to achieve different tones in our email. Lastly, we are going to talk about how to make our readers fully understand our point. Okay, now look at our content here. Look at our content. First, we must always wear a mask whenever we go out. The mask can shield us from the floating virus in the air. Okay, now think about that. Why do I need to write the mask can shield us from the floating virus in the air? We need to explain our point to Peter so that Peter can fully understand why he needs to wear a mask. Okay, next, look at the next idea, the next point. Besides, we must always wash our hands with soap and sanitizer so that we can avoid contact with virus in the surroundings. Okay, why do we need to write so that we can avoid contact with virus in the surroundings? When we write that sentence, we are actually explaining to Peter that why he needs to always wash his hands so that he can avoid contact with virus. So Peter can understand why it is important to wash his hands constantly. Lastly, look at the last point. We should avoid crowded places, and then if we go to crowded places, it is difficult for us to practice social distancing. Therefore, we will be exposed to the deadly virus easily. Okay, now think about that. Why do we need to write these sentences? It's because we need to explain to Peter why it is very important to avoid crowded places. It's because we have to explain to Peter the danger of crowded places. All right, that if we go there, it's impossible for us to practice social distancing, so that Peter will fully understand us, or Peter will be fully informed about what to do and what not to do after reading our email. So in this way, we can make sure that Peter can understand our ideas completely or fully, and we can achieve and we can get higher marks in the section of content. All right. Lastly, we want to talk about connectors and cohesive devices. Okay. Now look at the cohesive devices and connectors in this email. Okay. First of all, we have got first, and then we have got besides, and then we have got in addition. Okay. So these connectors are used to connect different ideas together. And also we also have some cohesive devices such as so that, therefore, and if. Okay, these cohesive devices are used to tell us the logical relationships between sentences. Okay, for example, if we go to look at this sentence here, if we go to crowded places, it is difficult for us to practice social distancing. So we know that this is not something happening. This is just a condition. Okay, this is just a condition that if we go to crowded places, we cannot practice social distancing. So our meaning can be more explicit if we use the correct cohesive devices or connectors in our email. Okay, before we call it a day, let's recap the lesson. So the first one, you should always plan the email by asking yourself relevant questions before start writing your email. And then in your email, you need to have greeting, the purpose of writing, content, and sign off. And when you are writing your content, it's very important for you to explain your point. And I believe all of you by now should know how to explain your point. Okay, it's by telling your readers why you should do something. For example, we tell Peter he should wear a mask whenever he goes out, And then we explain to Peter why he needs to wear a mask, because the mask can shield him from the floating virus in the air. Okay, so by explaining our point, we can make sure that our readers will be fully informed. Okay, now after that, we want to talk about the tones. Remember, how do we achieve the effects of tones? Okay, we have got 3 types of tones in the email. The friendly tone. Okay, so we achieve friendly tone by using greeting and showing agreement, and the serious tone through the use of certain words like must, should, necessary, virus, deadly. The polite tone through greeting, sign off, and the phrase I hope. Next, when we are writing an email, we only need 1 paragraph. And the last one, how do we make our meaning more explicit, more clearer? How do we make our meaning clearer? We need to make sure that we use the correct and appropriate connectors and cohesive devices. Okay, that's all for today. See you.